Portland Children's Levy Allocation Committee meeting of 2024. I'm joined by committee colleagues Tracy Rossi, Dan Floyd, Felicia Tripp-Folsom, and Julie Brim Edwards is traveling today and will not be able to attend. I'm also joined by the entire Levy staff, it looks like. Thanks for all being here. They're waving out in the crowd. Erica, Joel, John, Meg, Lisa, Katrina, Brian, and Yushing. And I just want to thank you all for joining us on this beautiful Monday morning. Now on to the agenda, and first up, we get to approve the minutes from our last meeting, which was March 11th. May I ask for a motion, please?
So moved.
It's moved by Felicia. Any second?
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor? Imagine that is unanimous. So we will move on to the next item. And next, what we have here is, I need to ask, has anyone signed up before the meeting for public comment?
We do not have anybody signed up for public testimony today.
Thanks so much, Yushing. And next, we'll have our financial analyst, John Kelly. He will introduce our guest to present on the annual audit findings. John, welcome to the podium.
Thank you.
Take it away.
Good morning. All I'm doing is introducing the manager of the engagement, Craig Popp from Marina and Company. They've been our auditors for a few years, and Craig is going to join us virtually to review the audit, the compliance audit with you all. There he is. Hi, Craig.
Welcome,
Good morning,
Craig.
everyone. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you guys today. So we've completed our compliance examination for the Portland Children's Levy. We issued our report, which contained an unmodified or clean opinion on March 27th, 2024. Our opinion is limited to the compliance requirements as outlined by ballot measure 26-197. To ensure compliance with this measure, we assessed the levy's internal controls. Also, we tested the levy's administrative expenses to ensure that they are less than the 5% of cumulative tax revenue. Finally, we tested the levy's administration of grants and grantee compliance to ensure reimbursed expenses were allowable and in line with approved budgets. During the course of our examination, we found internal controls appeared adequate and provided a sound structure for processing of administrative expenses and grant reimbursements. The total administrative expenses were less than the 5% of cumulative tax revenues by $804,000. All grantee reimbursements were allowable and within the approved budgets. There were no restrictions or significant difficulties incurred during the course of our examination. There were no disagreements with management. And finally, we had no recommendations based on the current year examination. Thank you.
Okay, and so Craig, does that complete your report?
That is it. That's all. If there are any questions, I'm here to answer them.
I'll just start off by saying I've heard a few of these reports in my life, and I think that might be the cleanest one I've heard yet. So John, take a bow. Not to put my bias over everyone, does anyone have any questions about the audit? Okay. So thank you. Is this a voting item? No. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for sharing it with us, and congratulations to the team. Providing a clean audit takes a lot of work, and also with the restrictions of 5% on administrative, that's a big lift to pull that off with such a limited amount of money to do basic infrastructure work. I always remind my friends in the profit sector they wouldn't do very well with only a 5% admin fee. So thank you so much to the staff for the clean report. Okay, on to the next item. Thank you again for coming, Craig. All right, you can stay if you'd like. Oh, he's already gone. Funding priorities for the 2024-25 funding round. Next, we have Community Engagement Coordinator Katrina Peterson and Grant Manager Erica Bridgman-Buonyolo. They'll present the funding priorities for 24-25. Look at you, you're all here. Go ahead and take it away, Katrina. Get us started.
Testing. Oh, there we go.
I know it goes from nothing to
Good morning, everybody.
My name is Katrina, and I'm joined by Erica. And then I'm also joined by Jacob Valentine, who's a member of the Portland Children's Levy Community Council. And then Karina Bjork will be joining us shortly, and she is also a member of the Community Council. So today, Erica and I are going to walk you through the funding priorities that are before you now. And then Karina and Jacob will be available to answer any questions that you have about the Community Council engagement process on the funding priorities. Go ahead and please hold your questions till the end. So what you see before you is a visual of the process that we've used to create the funding priorities. They are grounded in an extensive community engagement process to ensure that the Portland Children's Levy funds the services that are most needed in community right now. And so what you see is a high-level overview, and I'm going to go into each of the buckets of work in the upcoming slides. We began with a community engagement process that started in October 2023, and it just wrapped up this May 2024. And that process was led by Camille E. Trummer's consulting team. And then her team analyzed the data collected from this process and produced a final report in May of this year, summarizing the data, findings, and recommendations. Staff took this report along with the other resources and drafted funding priorities for each of the levy's 6 program areas. Staff sent these draft funding priorities to the Community Council, and using a consensus building model, the council provided their input, feedback, and edits to each of the funding priorities. The council reached consensus on all of the funding priorities and voted to recommend them to the Allocation Committee for adoption. So just to give you an overcap of the community engagement process, this process was designed so as to hear from the Portland Children's Levy priority populations. And we deployed 3 different research tools: surveys, focus groups, and interviews to collect community input on what services should be prioritized. As you can see on the slide, we heard from 760 community members and service providers across Portland. And of community survey respondents, we heard from the priority populations the levy seeks to serve. More than 70% of community survey respondents were BIPOC. More than 50% live in households earning less than $50,000 a year, and more than 50% have a preferred language other than English. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. There we go. So the data collected from this process was summarized and analyzed by Camille E. Trummer's team, and the recommendations were presented at the May 6th meeting that all of us were present for. And that was the joint meeting of the Allocation Committee and the Community Council. From there, staff took the findings and recommendations from this final community engagement report. Go ahead and go to the prior slide. And alongside the complete data set, drafted the funding priorities. In doing the drafting, staff also considered the parameters and limitations set by the PCL ballot measure and act requirements to fund direct services for children and families. And staff also considered the role played by other major systems serving children and families, such as the healthcare system, child welfare, et cetera. After drafting these priorities, staff sent them to the Community Council, who met for 4 hours on May 29th to review, discuss, and provide input and vote on them. And we used a consensus building method to facilitate this process. Council members worked in small groups to edit each program area's funding priorities and answer a policy question posed by each staff. And then we moved to full council work, where each funding priority was presented and then went through 4 rounds of consensus building. There were clarifying questions, edits and reactions, must-haves, and a consensus check. All 6 program area funding priorities reached consensus, and at the end of the meeting, the Community Council members voted to recommend all funding priorities to the Allocation Committee for adoption. So the draft priorities before you reflect Community Council inputs and edits. So at this point, I'm going to pivot from talking about process to talking about what funding priorities are at a high level and how they're used in grant applications. Big picture, they're used to communicate eligibility to potential applicants. And each program area has a set of funding priorities, and they each include the following components. The first is that they include program services. These are the services that are eligible for funding, and applicants must provide at least one of these types of services in order to be eligible. In addition, each of the funding priorities include program features, and these are the program delivery models desired by community. Applicants are not required to have the features listed, but applicants that include desired features may score higher. And then they also include the community engagement demographic results. In cases where specific groups of community engagement process participants strongly preferred certain services, staff included that information in the community engagement demographic results section of the program area funding priorities. Across all program areas, the priority populations listed on this slide are the groups that the Levy is prioritizing to achieve its goals. And these priorities are integrated into the application and scoring criteria. At this point, I'm going to pass the presentation to Erica.
Okay, thank you, Katrina. I'm gonna give it. All right. So in the next few slides, I will review the 2024-25 funding priorities that the staff and community council developed. I want to remind you that your packet has additional information, including the program features and demographics for each program area. I'll be presenting the funding priorities for the program services here. First, I want to highlight key similarities and differences between the 2019-2020 funding priorities that shaped our current cohort and grantees, and then I will review each program area in the subsequent slides. Community members in 2019 and 2024 both emphasize the importance of staff that are culturally responsive and reflective of the clients served, and most of the elements of each program area were the same in both rounds, and we have continued support for 14 to 24-year-olds in foster care. Okay, some of the key differences. Early childhood is the largest program area in our current cohort, but since Preschool for All was passed in 2020 by Multnomah County voters, and there will be an increasing number of preschool slots available to families, preschool classrooms have been removed from the early childhood program area priorities. College and career support for 14 to 24-year-olds was prioritized by community members in mentoring and foster care programs. And in mentoring, there was an expanded array of services. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Oh, okay, well, it's fine. We'll talk about it when we get to mentoring. Hunger relief priorities are they haven't changed between funding rounds, and in this round they are food pantries offered at community locations, food pantries at schools, free groceries and ready-to-eat meals delivered to family homes, classes for children and families on nutrition, cooking, and gardening, and access to gardens for families to grow food. Go to after school. The after-school program priorities are providing activities for youth such as arts, sports, STEM education, and youth recreation, providing hard and soft skill building, career readiness, and internship opportunities for youth, providing academic support, including tutoring and homework assistance, supporting healthy social and emotional development, including activities to help youth build healthy peer relationships, reducing feelings of isolation, and learning healthy strategies to manage stress and navigate conflict. And the last one, providing activities for youth with disabilities, neurodivergence, or developmental delays, including art, sports, STEM, education, and/or youth recreation. So the last one is specific for youth with disabilities. The first one is inclusive for all youth, including. Okay, you can go to the next slide. In the child abuse prevention area, our priorities are connecting families to resources like food, utility payments, housing or rental assistance, and other basic needs, connecting parents, caregivers to each other to reduce isolation, support parents and caregivers and youth experiencing grief and stress to learn coping skills, to help children, youth, and families navigate multiple systems, including the child welfare system, mental and behavioral health, and legal services, supporting the healing of families impacted by violence. And the last one is offering support and resources to teen parents, including learning about child development and behavior, identifying and expressing feelings, helping children learn skills to handle stress, supporting children and families experiencing grief, stress, and coping skills, and access to substance use, intervention, and supports, as well as connecting parents to resources for basic needs. In early childhood, the funding priorities are offering financial assistance to families for childcare, helping families learn about child behavior and development, including managing difficult behavior, helping children identify and express feelings, helping parents and caregivers of children with disabilities, neurodivergence, or developmental delays with parenting needs, including system navigation to help children access physical, occupational, and speech therapy, and to offer community-based pre- and postnatal maternal education. In foster care, the priorities are to provide support for older youth entering college or the workforce and to help them find housing, to support foster youth to understand their cultural and racial identities, to support them for connection and reunification between foster youth and birth parents, including mental health support, and to support foster parents to create welcoming home and supportive care for LGBTQ2IA plus youth, and then to help foster youth, foster families, and birth parents to navigate multiple systems, to provide services that support and improve youth mental health, especially for LGBTQIA plus youth, and mentoring for foster youth and/or their birth parents of the youth in foster care, especially by mentors who share similar experiences with the foster care system. You can go to the next slide. Yes, mentoring. Okay, once again, community members and the community council prioritize consistent professional mentors who are able to work across multiple years with the youth and to offer activities to increase social connections, reduce isolation, and affirm identities among youth and families with similar identities, to offer identity-specific support, opportunities, and mental health resources for youth to express their feelings and heal from trauma, grief, and experiences of violence, to offer services that prevent youth from joining gangs, services that affirm the cultural, racial, gender, and LGBTQ plus identities of youth and families, to support youth ages 14 to 24 to prepare and plan for employment or college, and to help youth develop leadership skills. As you can see, this is a much broader range of recommended services that was developed through community engagement in order to respond to the emerging needs of the community. That's the end of my slides. Again, I just want to highlight that, as you could see throughout, that mental health and social emotional well-being was emphasized throughout the funding priorities because of what emerged from the community engagement process and the work with the community council. That's all I have.
Thank you, Erica. Does that conclude the report? Okay. We all behaved very well and didn't ask questions while you did the report. So now the room is open for questions. Yeah, if you turn it on, you'll be heard.
There we go. I've got a loud voice too. So one way or another is going to work. I kept writing down mental health because obviously it kept occurring and reoccurring. And I'm glad you brought it up. And I've said, if you've been around me, I think regardless of where I am professionally or on a board or here today, I just made it my own personal mission a few years ago just to focus on mental health. And so it's good to see that continually repeated in all these areas. But also it makes me think too, from my own experience, that even if the funding is available and the will is there, we still need to have the resources. And so my question for you is, during the community surveys, did we get any indication that if the funding is available, that the resources are also available, that we can connect to the resources and help people navigate that system?
We did talk about in a variety of different ways. There is a lack of, say, culturally specific therapists, for example. So that is part of the emphasis, I think, on system navigation of helping match children and youth to the services that are available, but also when you have mentors who can specifically focus on mental health, like maybe in a different way than a therapist would be, but providing, opportunities for youth to talk about things, providing kind of wellness activities. Some do mindfulness, variety of different things like that, that can also be supportive of that service.
Yeah, thank you. I just hope that when we make a decision here in the next 8 to 10 months, 8 to 10 months, that when the money is made available, that we're also able to connect with adequate resources and that people get the help they need.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
I'm going to keep saying it. I just want to see it happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I want to stay on that theme for a minute. And we've been hearing about this forever. I know I've served on the Trillium Family Services Board, and the deficit, the gap of those who are resourced and credentialed to connect with the youth that are in the BIPOC community has been, it's been there for a while, and I know we're trying to keep working on it. And so thanks for addressing that. That's what came out of this conversation as well. We have a lot of counselors in the school systems that I always found that the information and intelligence that they have, then the information and intelligence the nonprofits have sometimes is too vast. And so the handoffs don't include what would be really important. And that's that type of dialogue. It's like in the medical world, if you go from one doc to another and they didn't talk to each other, it's usually not a good thing. So I'm hoping when we see from applications, we hear about their networking with, say, if they're in the David Douglas School District area, that they have figured out a way to be networked with the school counselors so that could be improved. I just thought I'd put that out while we're on this topic.
And on the theme of counselors, not from a mental health perspective, but I saw a bigger focus on 14 to 24. This year's FAFSA was the worst on record, and that had significant impact on underserved communities. We're seeing the lowest rates of them attending college, and our counselors were ill prepared in our schools to support these kids while they were undergoing this significant transition in their families. One of the things I would really encourage us when we look at the ages of 14 to 24 is not only the direct traditional services, but what can we do to close the wealth gap for them? What are the obstacles and barriers that we have to remove? Because I think it's really a shame on us in the city that so many of our young people graduating from Portland Public Schools that had the opportunity to go to college are not going because they didn't have the right adult to help them through the enormous heavy lift of the FAFSA. So now we're going to have to do in 2024, 2025, finding a way to help these kids. Because we know that when we work in this work, that college is not only an education, but it provides safety nets for them that they do not currently have post 18 especially. So I really encourage like what Dan is saying around mental health. I think we also should look at systems and barriers, especially since we're going to have an expansion for 14 to 24, what kind of mentoring and supports we need to get them over the hump, whether it's going into the trades, whether it's going into college, but making sure that transition is there for that age group as well.
Thank you, Felicia. And we did see in the data a desire on the part of the youth specifically to have paid internships. That came up pretty strongly.
One of the things that we also talked a little bit about in the engagement is the importance of the incentivizing people to mentor. I think for especially a lot of professionals, there isn't a lot of incentive. So I think part of the, when we're asking people to apply for a lot of these grants, really just having that idea of like, that's why we kind of we hammered in the idea of mentorship in multiple of these priorities, and creating that incentive for people to mentor, but also to create mentors in a sense.
And I was gonna say, I think that is a great idea, especially for our foster youth, to really be able to, especially them being prioritized and having those navigators in this year again with so many obstacles and barriers. Jacob, I think that is a great idea, and I'm really glad that because Mitch is no longer on the council. So Mitch, if you're listening, yes, we need to provide more resources and support, especially for foster youth. That was his big group that he championed for the Levy. And as all of us already know, they need us, especially to be able to champion for them.
And one thing I would add, in addition to the mentoring component for the older young adults, is really reminding ourselves that the basic needs piece is also going to be a huge priority for those young adults. And so I know that spreading the money will be hard across all of these young people, but just keeping that top of mind as well.
Dialogue. The time to talk about just some big picture issues too related to this. Pause for a moment to make sure I collect all my thoughts here. I think for me, I think these categories work.
Microphone.
I was wondering if we needed to add one, and yet I don't like adding things unless you take something away. So I tend to not push for that. But I do think the post K-12 area, which is, I guess you could say, is 18 to 24, I really wanted to lift that at this opportunity. And I know we got some in there around workforce. And I think as I was having conversations with Director Pellegrino, it was if you're a trades apprenticeship organization, if you're an organization that guides students towards that, would you feel seen to apply for these grants? And I think we got there, but I know we had to add some language to make it more clear, because if we're really focusing on 18 to 24, where our mental model is going from not just the word prepare, but it's going to completion. So by age 24, you want a young adult to be ready to have the tools to be economically mobile in life. That's like the big enchilada here. So everything guides towards that. Graduation from high school is one thing, but the real graduation to launching into life is to having your independence by being credentialed enough to navigate the economy and surviving as an adult in the world. And we know we failed our 18-year-old foster kids forever. And we've also failed a lot of students who don't have parents that can continue to support them through age 24, which all parents do if they have the means. So it's always looking at that gap that government's done a poor job of addressing forever. And so we're hoping at this time that we really see that as a change from 2020. And so my lens is often in that space. And I think I mentioned this many times to Lisa, of course, but I just wanted to voice that here today as we bring up some edits. Does anyone else see? This is a big deal because this is our opportunity every 5 years, to to have an opportunity to take a pause because Mitch was on this allocation committee, as it was stated. There was a shift perhaps in more emphasis on mentoring. So as a body right now, we have a chance to have an imprint with the community council on how to give more attention towards that area or whatever areas we have. So it's okay to take some pause here and do some dialogue.
Yeah, well, then my dialogue is, well, with everybody, but to your point too, because you've got me thinking about it, and I've heard the discussion about post-K through 12. And so you said you are comfortable, maybe comfortable right now with us focusing on college and career. I'm not sure that it's that explicit.
Well, I know I made some edits. When does that come up? Is that in this, Lisa?
Oh, if you have edits, if anybody has edits to any priority.
Okay, so I did make some edits to something, and it's, but can you help me with this? Like, where did I make that? I don't see it
I
in the,
think-
it's in front of me.
My understanding was that your edits would have been in the mentoring program area.
Yeah, and I think I struggled to know where it was. I find that we use the word mentoring in a really broad way now. And so that's
Yes.
where I was like, do we really need another one, another category that's basically like post K-12? What would we call that? And we're putting everything under mentoring. So that's one question I have.
Yeah,
I don't know if I was doing work in this space, say I'm Portland Youth Builders, say I'm working at the electrician union, the carpenters union, and I've been working really hard to try to build relationships with K-12, which is very difficult to do. And we're trying to have a pipeline, if you will, of students that would enter into that. Would I see myself in our guidelines to know that I can apply when there's categories like this? Yeah.
Oh, so when it comes to the difference between mentorships and apprenticeships, I think that does need to be very specific, because when we talk about mentorships, I mean, this is just coming from the outside in. I'm thinking someone who's going to come up and, be with my child for, the next couple years and is going to be that mentor. When we talk about apprenticeship, it is the focus of getting them a job eventually, or give them the skills to get a job. And I think that is something that is, I would say, an appropriate term, because it is one of those things where people are throwing around mentorship to everyone, and apprentices are like, well, does that include us, and people in the trade? So I definitely think the terminology between mentorship and apprenticeship could encourage people in the trades to want to apply for these.
So Jacob, what's your suggestion on language beyond mentoring?
I think language definition. So apprenticeship, anyone who is trying to apply for this apprenticeship, anyone who is giving the training to get a job, or skills to get a job. So because this is a big difference, because takes for instance, if you're train someone in the food industry, they can get a job in production cooking, they can get a job in factory, they can get a job in this. But if you're talking about specifics of like electrical work, electric apprenticeship, or carpentry, that is very specific. So that's the
Goes
kind of
into the
language.
journey track. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's a big difference than getting a 14 to 18-year-old who's going to mentor for the next 4 years, and say, hey, I'm going to get you through this journey. And part of this journey is identify what you want to do outside of high school when you turn 18. If you're going to go to college, if you're going to trades, getting you help with like financial literacy and all those things. That's a mentor.
Yes.
Their job isn't to get them a job. Their job is to develop them. And that's why I think when we talk about classification of the terms, mentors are development. Apprenticeships is for education on the job or getting them a job.
Agreed, agreed.
Commissioner
So-
Ryan,
Yes.
can I just ask, so in the program, the mentoring program area, we have it pretty much defined as individual mentoring and group mentoring. So in your edits, are you thinking about mentors matching, like as system navigators matching youth with apprenticeship programs? Or are you thinking that like an actual workforce program that is an apprenticeship program would be applying?
A workforce mentorship, workforce program would apply.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think our conception was to make it inclusive so that mentoring is both the broad type of mentoring that you just discussed and also includes specific type of mentoring that you're taking somebody through a program like an apprenticeship program to have them come out with a credential at the end and be able to go to work. So that also takes mentoring. There is the actual stuff of the apprenticeship, but there is also the mentoring and support to get through that program, which is what many nonprofit organizations might provide, is that additional support for the youth. They're shepherding them through.
From what I hear, Commissioner Ryan, I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, but he's talking beyond preparation. He wants to make sure that completion occurs because there is and tell me if I'm wrong, but there is we see a lot of mentorship programs that just stay at the preparation but don't have the accountability for completion with the young person. And I think that is what he's referencing, whether it's what Erica just said, that young people want internships. Are those internships turning into paid internships to jobs? If it's being with the youth, are they, one, graduating from high school, are they able to actually get into the trade itself so they can begin the process so they can complete it? I think his nuance, and please tell me if I'm wrong, is not the preparation. He wants to make sure there's the onus on the completion is what I hear.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. And I've been saying this for a couple of years. So.
Should I run by some language I was attempting to run, but couldn't connect on
Yes.
Friday, but I'll run by the language
I
that
don't know
you all
it,
can
and
see
I-
what you think.
And we might need to have a
Dana's been
different
having a very busy
category
life.
too, so it sticks out.
Yeah, I mean, the program areas are set by the ballot language, so I think we have to define it within the ballot language program areas that we have. But I think we could add some more specifics to the funding priority. So see what you think of this, and again, shoot it down if you don't like it. Support youth ages 14 to 24 to complete a pre-apprenticeship program, prepare for employment and/or college, and/or complete an apprenticeship, post-secondary credential program, or college degree.
That's very concrete and lovely. Yeah.
So it's more specific, it addresses the completion issue. It also, I hope, would help people see that there's a whole range of activities that we could support your program to do, which would include helping the kid finish the apprenticeship and supporting them through that, as well as generalized mentoring that's providing other types of supports. Does that?
That,
Is this on?
yeah.
That I think for that more specific piece, the measurable outcomes in those areas, I think would be an added component. Is if it really is about identifying the completion, that once we get into areas, thank you, we just started. I think that metric is going to be really important.
Yeah, the wording, the lovely wording, where is that placed? Thank you for the education, you may have already said, but
So it would replace, there currently is a priority on the mentoring list that Erica went through.
It's-
You want to read what it says?
Okay. It says support youth ages 14 to 24 to prepare and plan for employment and/or college.
So replacing that language with this language, support youth ages 14 to 24 to complete a pre-apprenticeship program, prepare for employment and/or college, and/or complete an apprenticeship, post-secondary credential program, or college degree. So because it's 14 to 24, we're trying to encompass the whole thing, right? So someone who's 14 to 18 isn't going to complete an apprenticeship in that age group till they're going to school still, right? So it's trying to get the whole age span of things that you would be helping them to move along to do.
So that sounds like our conversation we had last week. So thank you for producing that. Yeah. And thanks for reminding me that we have the ballot language specifics that we're dealing with, so we don't have the choice to do some edits that would be probably appropriate from a marketing standpoint on how it looks out there. But as long as we have the teeth and the guidelines that allow those organizations that can work with our youth 18 to 24 in ways that students, youth between 18 and 24 that have resources at home already have that privilege and that honor. And so we just want to make sure we extend that to those that don't have that access.
And do remember that we are doing outreach. That's part of our plan. So we are not only just putting these words out into the world, we are going to go out and try to talk to folks who might be doing this kind of work about whether they would be, interested or appropriate to apply. So it's not, it doesn't end here. I don't want you to think that it's just, that's it.
But we are doing a cultural change right now. And so it's really important to stay with this conversation because it's the first time we're really being explicit about results between 18 and 24 around the words like completion and credentials. So it's a good moment.
Do you want to make a motion to adopt that then, so we're clear on our next steps?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to add the language that is more explicit that Lisa just entered into the dais. So if you want to repeat it so everyone can know what we're voting on, that'd be great.
Sure. So the replacement language is support youth ages 14 to 24 to complete a pre-apprenticeship program, prepare for employment and/or college, and/or complete an apprenticeship, post-secondary credential program, or college degree.
That motion. Yeah.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that passes. Thank you. Were there any other, Dan, did you get your questions answered around
Yeah,
mental health
yeah,
and the through
yeah,
lines there?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
thank you.
It was really great work. You could see the added benefit of the community council compared to when you didn't exist. It's a real added value. It's great to have you both at the table.
I agree. Your feedback is, as someone that's been, this is my second round of going as a trustee, I just want to say to both of you that your feedback was critical. And I really saw the difference in just the way the Levy staff came forward. And having your feedback, I think, is essential as we move forward with these resources. So I just personally want to thank both of you and the rest of the council as well.
Anything else? Okay, well done. All right, we're on to the next item. Thank you all for coming.
Lisa, do they need a vote on the recommendation?
Is there another vote?
Adopting all the priorities?
Oh, it's like we passed the amendment for it, but we didn't pass the big enchilada. Okay. So now we're actually going to pass the funding priorities as it's been outlined in the presentation with the one edit amendment, if you will. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that passes unanimously. Good catch. Save the awkward email for later this afternoon.
It's a Monday.
Okay, now we're going to go to the allocation of projected resources for 24-25. We'll have Lisa and John up.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner.
Welcome.
Okay, you can go to the first slide. Okay, so we're going to talk through allocating resources at the high level for the upcoming funding round that's going to begin this fall. So first, I want to just put everybody in the frame of mind of the requirements. So as we were talking about the ballot measure and the act that accompanies it, there's a set of rules that we have to abide by as we approach this next funding round. So one of the first requirements is that you allocate these resources before the funding round in this broad way. And it was put there to make sure that we have people on notice about the approximate level of funding we're trying to put out into the community, so that when people are thinking about applying, they know approximately what the level of resource is, to give them some scaling. Another key restriction or requirement that we have is that we cannot allocate more than 35% of the projected resources to any one program area. So that assures that all the program areas in the ballot measure will get funding. We also have to let grants in a competitive grant process. That's required, except for up to 10% of the projected resources can be allocated non-competitively for specific purposes that are listed in the Act. And those specific purposes are for special initiatives that cross program areas. Okay, so things that, and I'll talk about one that we've had for a long time in a minute. And quality improvement supports like training and technical assistance for the grantee programs, and also for work that improves systems that affect children and organizations that serve them. So that kind of sets up our large-scale frame for how we can allocate resources. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So just a little bit about what the projected resources are. Okay, so right now, the estimated resources for grants and grantee training, so in that competitive and non-competitive buckets of things we can do for the FY 26 through 28, so that's the next grant period that we're looking at, is $71.5 million currently. And that estimate includes the projected revenues for the tax levy, the fund balance that we make our best estimate of what that will be based on grant spending trends over time. Has been a little volatile lately with the pandemic, and so we're doing our best to estimate conservatively. Minus the projected expenses for personnel, internal, external materials and supplies, and reserves. So I want to draw attention to the fact that The Economist is projecting somewhat decreased revenues and increased compression due to the falling value of the office buildings post-pandemic. So that is affecting what's projected in our resources. The last projection we had was January of 24. Okay, so we're basing them on these projections. I want to remind folks that we are going to get another revenue forecast before this committee comes together to make decisions on grants, and that will be in January of 25. So it's possible it will be updated. We don't get really an interim forecast, so we're using what we have for now. But I just want to make sure we hold that thought. Okay, you can go on to the next. Thanks. So first I'll go through the recommendations for non-competitive grants. So this is within the 10% that can be let non-competitively. We're recommending that you allocate $6.6 million over that 3-year period for 2 purposes. One, for the Community Child Care Initiative, $6 million total, an average of $2 million per year. And I'll give you some information, make sure we're all on the same page about what that initiative is. So that is a special initiative that crosses program areas because it provides childcare subsidies across the age spectrum. So it is not just an early childhood program. It covers childcare costs for children up to age 12. And it is an initiative that helps working families that earn low incomes to afford high-quality care. It supplements the state employment-related daycare subsidy and assures that families pay no more than 10% of their income for childcare. So that's what the initiative is. We're recommending keeping the level of investment consistent at approximately $2 million, an average of $2 million per year over that 3-year period. And our rationale for that is kind of threefold. First, you just heard from the funding priorities that affordability of childcare was very high and community engagement as a need. So that's number one, really. The second thing is that the subsidies that are available now, because this has been funded now, have currently all been used, and there's a waiting list for getting on to the subsidies. And then last,
Does that revenue stream come from the feds or the state?
does what come from
The
the
revenue stream to assist folks in,
the ERDC, that's a state stream.
that's a state,
Yeah, that's the employment-related daycare is a state program.
that's been descending.
They may get federal funds also. Meg could answer that, but is running through the state, so they have to qualify for that too. And then the other thing we do is they do a periodic, CCI does a periodic satisfaction survey with the families and with the providers that are involved in it. They just finished another one, and we just finished analyzing the results, so we didn't have the report ready for today, but they were super positive. People say amazing things about having access to this resource. So those were kind of our rationale for keeping our investment consistent in that. The second piece of that $6.6 million is $600,000 for grantee training, an average of $200,000 per year. And we are recommending that to cover the cost of the PSU contract that we, I think, told you that was happening in March when we were at our March meeting, and that they are currently providing training for grantees. We want to keep that going, and then a little bit additional extra for potential more specific trainings for program areas. And as an example, we did specific disability and inclusion training for small grants, and we hired a separate set of trainers to work with that group of grantees particularly because they had specific goals they were trying to reach. So that's an example of the type of extra training we might provide. The PSU training so far, they've finished their first quarter of training, and all the trainings were full, and so far evaluations have been good. So we want to make sure we keep providing training to respond to what grantees tell us they need, which has been a consistent need in all the grantee surveying that we've done, and also just because ongoing training for staff that provide direct services is key for quality improvement and maintenance. So that's kind of our rationale for why we're recommending that we invest that.
How much are we currently doing in the CC, what's it called? CC?
Average of $2 million a year.
We've been doing $2 million a year?
Well, it's varied over time, but yes, that's average.
I'm only pausing because this is a national issue. You're hearing about it all the time. So I'm just wondering if, was there conversations about it increasing?
Not specifically. Part of the, I mean, I might invite Megan if she wants to add her thoughts about it, but my understanding was that that seemed to be about at capacity, no, in the context of what ERDC has done some things to make their resources more available. They've upped the amount that they can reimburse. And so we're again coming into that gap between ERDC and the true cost of quality care. That's kind of where the CCI is providing additional subsidy. So the best forecast was that we would be able to definitely use that amount of subsidy with the population of folks that need help in that gap. Does
What
that
I
make sense?
recall from the stories, let's say I heard it on, OPB, it was that the expense of this has gone up. Inflation-wise, it's was kind of shocking when I was listening to the amount of increase.
I will let Meg add anything you want to add to that.
I think you've covered it quite
Okay.
well. I don't think I have more to add.
The other limit would be that 90%, 10%.
Yeah, that's the other piece. So just remember, 10% of resources we can let non-competitively. So that we are under that 10% now, but not by much. We're at about 9.2, I think. So that's our other ceiling on there.
So how much?
10% of projected resources.
And we're how much below it right now?
We're at about,
It's less
I
than
think that was
1%.
about 9.2% of resources, if my math memory is correct. John, do you have
Yeah,
that about
that's-
right? Okay.
that's about right.
So we're within the requirement. That's what we're assuring for. Other questions before I move on? So we'll take discussion on all the recommendations at the end, but I'm happy to answer questions in the middle if that's helpful.
You were brought up, is it because you were going to talk
Well,
about
I
how
just
great
want-
the program is, or?
I don't need to at this
Results?
point. Lisa had covered everything that I think you were asking, and I came up in case anyone had any other CCI-related questions, but it seems like you've got it all covered.
Okay. Okay, we can go on to the next slide around small grants. So we're also recommending that we allocate 1.5 million over that 3-year period for small grants. And just to remind you that 1.5 million would cover the last year of the current small grants plus another round, 2 years of another round of small grants. So our current small grants will end in FY 20, or let's see, FY 20 or FY 27. Do I have that right, Erica? 26, okay, so FY 26, sorry. So it will cover for that year, and then we are not running a large and small grant round simultaneously. We don't have the capacity for that, so we're gonna run the small grant round after we finish the large grant round. So that 1.5 million would cover 1 year of current funding plus 2 new years. And our rationale for recommending that is, well, A, we need to cover the cost of the final year that we've already committed to, for sure. But we want to continue providing that equity of access to smaller organizations who have struggled to compete at the large grant level, and to make sure that we are bringing up and supporting organizations that are coming out of community, emerging out of community, and led by people from those communities. And then last, we want to make sure that we continue building capacity in smaller organizations as they grow. And this pilot really has proved successful in that. Almost all of the small grantees, the current small grantees, will be eligible to apply for large grants in the next funding round if they choose. So we want to keep doing that. It's gone well, and we recommend you continue. And then last, recommendations for large grants. Okay, so we're at that 71.5 is the max. We're recommending 6.6 in non-competitive grants, 1.5 for small grants, and then the remainder is the 70.45 that are allocated across the 6 program areas for all the reasons that Erica just detailed. So that's what we're talking. I just want to make sure everyone's clear what we're talking about at this point. And the major change that we've made in how we're recommending these amounts to you for the program areas in the next funding round is we're recommending that you look at ranges. So we put forward that we're going to aim to fund a certain percentage of our protected resources for the different program areas in a range. So we used to not do that, and that sometimes made it hard if we didn't get a lot of applications in one program area, but we got a lot in another, and then the committee would want to fund more because there were good quality applications in many of them, and fund less in another category. This gives you some flexibility while also still giving some notice to the community. We're looking in this range. We're trying to allocate between this and this amount of funding for this program area. So that's just a shift. And for those of you who've been here longer, like Felicia, it's different than how we did it last time.
And I would like to add, I am thrilled that you are moving to that, Lisa, because I always felt like we were really pigeonholed in the past. So I think the ranges are going to be incredibly helpful for the committee as we make the decision. So thank you, staff. I was really thrilled to see that change.
Okay, if you want to go to the next slide, I'll kind of detail where our recommendations are at and why. Okay, so this slide shows you all the program areas, again, that we just looked at the funding priorities for. And on that first column, it tells you what the division of resources is using the current year grant budgets. Okay, so we're taking all of the resources that are currently out there in budgets for people to use, and that's how they come out for the program areas. That's what it is currently. So in the recommended, the next column over is the recommended percentage range. So as you can see, they're all ranges. They're not one number. And we are recommending some changes. So this is, some of these recommended ranges are changes from what you see in the existing column. And I want to detail why we are recommending those so you understand where we're coming from before you start your discussion. So the biggest change is in early childhood, and we are recommending it to be decreased for the reason that Erica stated at the beginning, which is that Multnomah County is currently funding a Preschool for All initiative, and we will no longer fund preschool slots in classrooms in the city. So that's the primary reason for that decrease. We are recommending increases in allocation percentages to child abuse prevention and intervention and hunger relief programming areas for similar rationale. Community engagement results highly prioritize supporting mental health, as you just heard, and meeting basic needs for children and families. Child abuse prevention and intervention programs focus on both those priorities. They often offer flex funds that are meant to stabilize families, as you heard in some of those priorities, help them pay utility bills, help folks stay stable so they can parent their children adequately. And they also focus on mental health, both for children and for families, so parents can be there for their kids. And hunger relief really focuses on a very primary basic need. That's the whole reason for that program area. So we're recommending some increases to those program areas and allocation amounts. We're also recommending increased allocation to the mentoring program area. And as we just finished discussing, we have enlarged the age range for the mentoring program area. So theoretically, the number of programs and the types of programs can be enlarged. So there'll be greater competition in that area to serve an additional age group. And also, community engagement results highly prioritize services that support mental health, decrease social isolation, and support connection. And many mentoring programs do focus on that. So there's kind of an enlarged focus for the mentoring program area, both in age range and in types of services. So we think we should be expanding the allocation to that program area. We were recommending an increase in allocation to the foster care program area. There were many new types of services in this program area that were prioritized for funding in the community engagement process, which we hope will increase the number of programs that are eligible to apply in that area. And in addition, foster youth are the most vulnerable population, as Felicia, I think, pointed out, served in the PCL program areas as a whole. So we're recommending somewhat increased allocation to that program area. Last, we are recommending either a decrease or to keep consistent the allocation for the after-school program area. And that's because a lot of after-school programs have really struggled to engage youth post-pandemic, and some currently funded programs have been chronically under-enrolled and underspent. So it's not for lack of trying, but it has been a different world out there in terms of engaging youth, and what came through in community engagement was a lot of focused one-on-one, culturally specific, social-emotional supporting programming in the mentoring side, more so than an after-school. So that's why our recommendation was to decrease, or at least either hold constant or decrease the allocation for that program area. Okay, final slide. So this slide really is just meant to convert everything you just heard into millions of dollars. So sometimes it's easier for people to think in dollars rather than in percentages, so we wanted to provide both. And we'll remind you that this, we always post our slides for these meetings up on the web, so applicants, any potential applicants or grantees can kind of get a sense for where the levy's going in the next funding round. So if you look at this slide, that first column, the recommended 3-year range in millions of dollars, that's if you took those percentages and you take our projected resources for allocation, that's how it comes out. That's the amount of dollars for the 3-year grants that we would be investing in the next funding round. The column just to the right is in annual amounts. So it's just an average, just cuts that by a third. Some people, it's easier to think annually because that's often how organizations budget. They're not budgeting over a longer time horizon, so it's easier sometimes for people to understand what it means when they're looking at an annual investment. And then the final column is the current annual investment, okay? So that's the FY24 budgets. If we divide up all those resources and when we line them out, that's the millions of dollars that are currently being invested. So you can see what the change is. And I also want to I'll say one last note that you need to keep in mind that the amount of money that the committee will eventually decide to invest in any program area is going to depend on who comes forward and puts in applications and how the community reviewers score those applications, and then all the advice that staff and community council will give you. So there's a lot between this and the final decision. So I just want you to keep that in perspective. This is not, you may need to make further change. Our resources could change, and you may get a different set of applications than we expect, because we don't, as I think Dan Floyd pointed out to me, we don't control it. We can try our best, we can outreach, we can do the things we do, but we don't control who will apply in the final analysis. So I just want to make sure you're reminded this is not like a line in the sand that will be unmovable. You will have to respond to what comes forward. So I'll stop there, and then Commissioner Ryan, if you want to facilitate people through some discussion or questions, or
Yeah,
and
sure.
eventually
I
a
have
vote.
one to start off.
Right.
When you look at your recommended range, you guys had this conversation, I'm sure. So the range, when you get to the bottom, if you total it up, it's like 96% to 113%. So if in fact all of them skewed towards the higher percentage, then we wouldn't have enough money. So
That's correct.
what was that dialogue like? And was there conversations about tightening this up a bit, or is it natural to have the overage be much higher than the under?
Well, we've never done it before, so I'm not sure I can say what, is
Okay.
natural
Oh,
at this
that's
point.
exciting. It's
We've
a
never
whole new
done
world.
ranges before. I think, there's a lot of variables here, right? We don't know what our revenue forecast will say. We don't know exactly what our fund balance is, but we'll know better when we come to make decisions. So it's possible we'll have more than we estimated, okay? So there's always possible there'll be additional resource, not less. And then I think the key thing is last time, we had very limited competition in the mentoring program area, for instance, and higher competition in other areas. It's hard to project what we're going to get. I think we're going to go out, as we just discussed, to try to find the programs we think are going to be a good fit and try to encourage them to apply, but we can't make them apply. So it's hard to know. I mean, obviously, we will all be constrained, and we cannot allocate 113% of the resources. That will not be possible. So then the discussion may become, where do you want to emphasize based on what you received?
And then we talked about it earlier, like in mentoring, we'll just have to make sure we do a lot of outreach to those that won't see themselves in that category without us doing that outreach.
Correct.
We had this dialogue, so I just thought I'd share it. And I think for me, it will help to see what results we're getting, what kind of impact we're getting from the current categories. So in other words, the after-school program is a challenging conversation right now, because we know that for decades, we know that those students that aren't getting extra support after school and evenings and weekends always fall further behind. And then, of course, summer's the big summer slide. And so I think it's been disappointing, big picture society, no one's fault here in this room, as how difficult it's been post-COVID to get students and the nonprofits really get those numbers back up in those after-school programs. They seem to were falling, like when we weren't meeting our benchmarks, when we were returning money, if you will, it seemed to always be in that category. Can you tell me more about that? And are you seeing any improvements this past calendar year?
We have seen some improvements, although annual reports come in, and again, it's uneven. There are some programs who are doing fine and not having trouble enrolling and engaging and keeping youth there, but some are not. And so I think that's, there's different reasons for why that's the case, I think, and there's not one formula answer across the board as to why it's been more of a struggle. I think one of the things to keep in mind is that mentoring programs still have to operate with youth when they're free. So they are sometimes, I think Tracy could talk to this, they are offering services in those after-school hours. It may just be that kids are looking for a different kind of service than something that is typically offered in your standard type of after-school programming to some extent. Again, age differences matter here too, right? So older youth have been harder to engage. The elementary school youth, maybe less so. That parents need childcare and parents can dictate where students go after school. That's less the case when kids hit 6th or 7th grade.
And we all know the impacts of the COVID shutdown, if you will, has just been a big deal in terms of impact in getting both workforce back and also the students to think that they can actually do connection time after school.
Exactly.
And I don't know if we're talking about this big issue as much as we should. It's just been sad to see the numbers go down when you then see the math scores and all the scores going down as well. So there's a direct relationship to that.
I mean, school attendance has gone down.
Exactly.
And we have not fully
Yeah.
recovered from that. So I'm sure Tracy could talk
And we
with
just
her
want to figure
about
out.
that.
Tracy, you know more about this than anyone.
I mean,
I would just add, is this on? I can never tell.
Turn it on.
Now, is it, oh, there we go. You know, I think it's also how you slice and dice, because I do, going back to that sense of belonging, that lack of sense of belonging that so many youth feel, I do wonder if the after-school component is, we're seeing that drop, but the depth of relationship in the mentoring space is increasing. And I think we've seen how families are a little less likely to have their youth go to programs. Everyone's kind of retrenching and going inward. And so I think just analyzing and getting as much feedback as we can, because I don't know if the lack of after-school program means they're missing something. It could be that we need to provide more resources in programs that provide more of a deeper relationship, because that sense of belonging is really in crisis, as we all know, for our youth. So I would just add that, like I think exploring the data will be important. And also absenteeism is not only up, but chronic tardiness is also an element.
I also, as someone that sits on a board that serves youth, high school youth in particular, the other thing I've seen is more of a demand from youth around quality, not quantity. And what I mean by that is they are more picky about the organizations they want to associate with, because post-pandemic, the need to belong and feel seen and valued is even more critical to youth, I've heard, and when listening to them and their feedback. And it goes back to what Dan was saying around mental health. And so it's really one of the things that youth are also really focused on is more and more protecting their mental health, making sure the things that they do, they value. And so I think that is also a thing that we must honestly address, because they are becoming much more like, I'm not just going to come just to be a warm body, you know. And so post pandemic, that sense of belonging, that sense to really feel like this program, this service, whatever, is of value to me. I've seen, especially for youth that are above 12 years of age.
and that's echoed what I hear in grant reports. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've just been thinking and listening, and everyone's making great points. And just thinking of the after-school program, and maybe we're missing an opportunity, or maybe we're giving into the current climate. Because we did, again, talking about mental health and addiction or mental health issues, that we're going to fight that with connection, right? And then with after-school programs, we're doing the same thing with connection. And then from a business perspective, for an event business that we have, we're now selling people, because rightfully so, we're selling them on creating an experience and reconnecting to family, reconnecting to friends, or creating memories that are going to serve them for decades, years, just like we are with kids. I think that's also why the mentoring is so important. So, so I'm making a point, but also a question. If we do discuss this, and we think after school is roughly around 16 to 19%, but there are quality applicants that come in. I think you've already said this, but we can adjust that upward if we want. Can we do that?
Yes, I mean, I think, these are guidelines, right?
Yeah.
And if the applications are quite a bit different than you anticipate, and there is, many programs in one category you want to fund, and there is many fewer than what you anticipated in another category, you may make the decision to not invest all of the resources that you set aside for one category, and you'll move it to another category. So it is going to be dependent on the quality and the quantity of the applications that you want to fund in the end. It just gives you a bit more flexibility using ranges. I mean, you could again, if you don't get, let's just suppose you got very few applications in foster care. If you, and you wanted to fund, and you choose to fund all the ones you thought were quality, and that you didn't even use up the allocation that you made, you're going to take that balance and you're going to move it somewhere else where there are programs you do want to fund. So I think it's like, this is the best guideline we can come up with to try to communicate our policy thinking and to communicate to potential applicants what the resource is likely to be. But the truth of the matter is, you may make a different decision in the end because of what comes forward. So yes, you have that flexibility. We're trying to, give guidelines, guardrails, if you will. But I think that even in the past, the committee has chosen, even when it said, we're going to give 19% to this, and that's $3 million and whatever it is, the committee has come in and said, no, and Felicia's been part of that. We're going to move a balance over here because there are not very many programs that applied, and we're going to apply it over here where there are tons applied, and we want to fund more of them. So that's just, you do have the power to do that.
The other thing I would add is, as we're venturing into the 18 to 24-year-old conversation, I think the conversation is similar in the sense, you made a great point, Felicia, that youth 12 and older are very discerning about how they're going to use their time and who they trust. And I think that idea we should pay close attention to when reaching out to the 18 to 24-year-olds, because going back to that conversation about mentorship versus apprenticeship, I think that there will have to also be trust in those relationships. Services are going to be important, but finding a way to really make sure that those young adults are having connection points as well is going to be, I think, really, really important. So we'll learn a lot in those first allocations, and really having your ear to the ground in terms of what's connecting with young adults and what's not. There's a reason it's been so hard, right? Because they don't trust some of the programs and services that they've received.
You can have policy goals, but you have to be careful of that.
I remember when we were listening to the reports from after-school programs and they're doing virtual programming. This was probably 2 years ago. And everyone was doing the best they could. But I remember in my gut thinking, it's going to be very difficult to get this up and running again. And I think there's two things. One is, I still think we need to figure out, of course, how to do that connection time in real life, like in person. And then in that, build the trust to the programs that we see. So I hope that we use this as an opportunity to know that this needs some help. And because we haven't heard great reports compared to others when it came to the after-school programs. And so I wasn't surprised that that's where we've had to return money because it hasn't been expended. I also hope we have clear, there's still nonprofits that do client work, if you will, and they're doing it virtually. I can't really wrap my head around that personally. So I hope that we have, I just hope that we really pay attention to the importance of that in-person, going deeper type connection. And we don't fall for giving out money to nonprofits that are trying to do the COVID lockdown model as a long-term solution.
And I have to say, most people have moved from that for most
But
things
then they've
they
had
do.
workforce issues around that too. So it's just a messy space right now.
It
I'm
is.
not calling it out as someone's doing something wrong. I'm just trying to get to the truth of where I think why we're seeing some of the outcomes today that we're approaching that are hard for a lot of us who have been fighting in space for the last 20 years to see some pretty grim backpedaling. Yeah.
And you heard in the community engagement priorities that like long-term and professional mentors, so staff rather than volunteer. There's a definitely emphasis on that.
That's a theme both from the community and from this body, so, yeah. Any other questions? This is great. I can't read our minds, so this is our opportunity every quarter to get some feedback.
As I said earlier, I'm a fan of the ranges. It provides us some guidance, but as Lisa says in the past, it's all dependent on who applies, which I think is really, really important, and for us to do that outreach. But I am recommending that we vote on this because I think it makes sense. I really want to praise our staff. They've done the research. They didn't just come willy-nilly and make these changes. They really looked at the data and they really said, here's why we're making these changes. And I just I know that's incredibly hard work for you, Lisa, and Megan, and Erica, and the rest of the team. So I also want to acknowledge it, and I personally value it, and I'm really excited about where this is going.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm definitely supportive of this as well. And I appreciate what my colleague just mentioned. I appreciate that going down in the aggregate, say, in some of the numbers is hard to do. So when you look at early childhood, when I looked at it really helped that you actually put the dollar amount on that one, especially. But going from 7.7 annually to 4.4, that's a big change. And so I really want to acknowledge that change is never easy and that you all did some fine tuning here that's impressive. So I really appreciate that.
Thanks.
Okay, we ready to vote on this? Anyone want to make a motion?
I motion to approve the projected resources for the 2024-2025 funding round. Is that how I say it?
I think that's fine.
Okay.
I will second.
All right, we have a motion and second, and all those in favor, please state
Aye.
by saying aye.
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 All right, thank you. We will move
passes.
forward with those amounts of money in our funding applications, which will be published in the fall.
Now, to make it even more concrete, we have the funding round timeline. And Joel, that's you, right?
No, we have application first.
Item number 4.
Item number 4.
Oh, sorry, I skipped to 5.
We're close, we're close.
Okay. Hi, Meg. Sorry, I skipped 4.
Is this, okay, thank you. So I'll be pretty quick. I want to make sure Joel's got time to walk you through the timeline, and then Yusheng has the most fun part of our time together, so I want to make sure she has ample time for that. So just an update on where we stand with our application and review process. So that's the way we'll sort of operationalize these decisions that you all just made. So just a reminder that we started developing the application for this upcoming grant round by looking at the feedback from applicants and reviewers from our 2019-20 funding process, and they really wanted us to simplify the application. So we consulted our community council and created a framework for the application and worked with them to identify ways to simplify the application compared to the 2019 version. They gave us feedback over a course of meetings, and we integrated their feedback. We then took that version of the application and sent it out to over 300 people associated with over 160 potential applicant organizations this spring. They filled out a short survey and gave us feedback that they generally understood the questions and the scoring criteria that had been developed through that process with Community Council. And they gave us feedback to just further clarify a couple of the questions and scoring criteria in the program design section. So we worked on that. And as a part of working on improving the application and simplifying it, we are also moving part of the application questions to an online portal. The City of Portland adopted Web Grants as its online grant application software in the last few years. And so to be good stewards of city resources and work alongside our peers, we are also going to be running our grant application process through that portal. As part of our simplification of the application and streamlining, we have developed some of the questions that applicants will answer in forms that are in that portal. So there are basic data questions, eligibility questions, things that we can easily export data and analyze will be answered online by applicants. Then they will also submit a narrative application that they upload where they'll have more flexibility to spend time explaining things narratively as part of their program. On this slide, you can see the overall structure of our application for this year. So there are 5 steps, essentially. Steps 1 through 4 will be forms that applicants answer through that Web Grants portal, some basic questions on their eligibility for Levy funds, basic questions on the program, sort of numbers of children to be served, priority populations, basic questions on the service activities, and their budget request, amount of money that they're seeking. And then step 5 is that narrative portion. So that'll be an uploaded document. There are 3 sections of questions that they have to answer. And the point values there are associated with the scoring criteria and fall in a similar distribution to our previous application. So applicants will answer questions about their organization, about the program they've designed, and then justify the budget that they have requested. Narrative questions ask folks to talk about their skills, the applicant's skills and experience to operate the program and as an organization. Ask some questions about their program design specific to Levy funding priorities and the community priorities that you heard about earlier, and then also their ability to advance racial equity, diversity, and inclusion. We have integrated community voice questions into the program design section and into several of the scoring criteria based on community engagement results and our previous grant application experience. And there are format requirements for the narrative so that we can assure that everybody's using sort of the same amount of space to describe their program and other information. In general, the application for 2024 has about 30% fewer questions than the 2019 application. It has no complex tables or Excel worksheets required this time. So it should be an easier lift for potential applicants. Any questions on the application structure before I move to a little overview on the review process?
Any questions?
All right, great. Oh, did you have one?
Yeah, I'm
Commissioner
trying
Ryan,
to
go ahead.
formulate it.
Yeah.
We're working with the grants office on some bigger picture, and I'll just say that the Children's Levy always offers the best practice at the city of Portland, and so I always start with that. But then to continue to own that, I want to make sure that I'm aligned with that truth. And truly you are. It's fascinating how much of an overhaul is necessary, big picture. So thank you, Children's Levy, for providing a North Star. Do we have any governance, culture questions that look at governance and staffing?
Of the organizations that are applying? Yes,
assume
in
that's in
fact. Yeah, there are 4 sections of questions in the organization section. The second section looks at the organization's, the demographics of the clients that they serve as an organization, their staffing as an organization, the demographics of their board of their organization, and then asks a couple of other questions around retention, recruitment, retention, and training of organization staff and board members. And it is worth the most points in that organization section of questions. Does that speak to what you?
It does. I'll never forget a pretty sophisticated funder was, doing this kind of work for 50 years, and they were giving me some wisdom. And they said, if I just had the last few budgets, audited statement, and then an interview with the key staff and board, you have all the information you need to make funding decisions, because you get a sense of the culture, if they're financially have the chops to manage their organization. And so I was just reminded that as sophisticated as we get on visioning out the new program, which is very important, of course, it's that structure and can the organization have the bandwidth. So I just want to make sure that we cover such basics. And our financials, what do we ask for again? On
Yes, if the organization has an audited financial statement from their last closed fiscal year, we ask them to submit that. We also ask all applicants to submit 2 versions of their organization-wide budget that shows their revenues, one for a closed fiscal year and one for the current operating fiscal year. And then for any organization that applies and becomes a successful grantee, if they don't have audited financial statements, we allow them to budget up to a certain amount of money in their grant for covering that expense in part, so that they can complete having audited financial statements within the first year of having our grant. So before they can continue into year 2 with levy funding, they have to complete that audit and show a clean audit.
No wonder the grants office keeps noticing that you're the North Star. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the application before I look at the review process? So another thank you to our community council. They helped shape that application. They also were involved in thinking about our review process. We came to them over a couple of meetings outlining the strengths and challenges of our 2019 review process, and we posed some options to them for other ways that we could construct the process. But they thought that what we had done before with some slight improvements was worth continuing to do. So what we'd done before was recruited community members to read and score grant applications. We offer folks an optional stipend of up to $250 for doing any grant review outside of their regular working hours. We provide extensive outreach so that we can recruit a diverse pool of reviewers. We use an online sign-up, we have a screening process, and we look to make sure that we don't have conflict of interest with the reviewers that read and score applications. We offer training around implicit and explicit bias, practice scoring applications, and we'll be this year offering them some training on how to do that scoring process in that web grants platform. We give about 6 to 8 weeks for reviewers to read and score applications, kind of depends on how we fine-tune our final timeline. We offer check-ins from staff to those volunteers to support them and make sure that they can complete the review. And then once we are finished with the review process, staff sends the final and complete score forms to all applicants after we have given you all and our community council funding recommendations. One thing to note is that we do support reviewers to remain anonymous, so applicants won't know the name of the person who reviewed their particular applications, and that's to protect people's privacy and just avoid any pressures of retaliation. Any questions on the review process structure?
I think it goes back to what Dan says. I think that the Levy has one of the best review processes. And when the city of Portland has others, I do what Dan says. I said, have you looked at the children's levies process? I mean, you guys do a phenomenal job, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And it looks like we're at a place where you want us to make a motion to approve this, or you're good?
That'd be great.
Okay, I'll move that the grant application scoring criterion review process that we just listened to is ready to move forward. And you can edit my motion if you'd like.
I second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All
Thanks,
right,
Al.
onward. Now, Joel, you're here because it's at the right time, and I didn't skip anything. Welcome.
Thank you. As you can see, there has been much work done, and we're not even halfway done with completing the funding process. Over the next few minutes, I will highlight the projected funding process timeline for the application, publication, review process, and funding decision. As with any projected timeline, things may change due to any number of unforeseen factors. That said, here are the major timeline markers coming up in the funding process. First, we would like to have the application, as Lisa had mentioned a little bit earlier, published by September 10th of 2024. This application will be open for 8 weeks. During this 8-week period, we will have information sessions, regular updated FAQ page on the PCL website, as well as PCL staff availability for inquiries from nonprofit organizations. After the applications have been received, the review process will begin on approximately November 18th. Just like the previous funding cycle, PCL will be using community reviewers to review applications. The goal is to have the review process completed by January 2025, and that's the review process that Meg just reviewed just before I came on. Once the review process for applications has been completed, the funding decision process will begin. PCL staff will develop funding recommendations to be sent to the applicants, the community council, and the allocation committee. Then the community council will meet and make funding recommendations to the allocation committee. And then the allocation committee will then make the funding decisions ultimately. The goal is to complete the funding decision process by April of 2025. Questions, comments?
Looks good to me. Anyone have any questions? Pretty straightforward. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thanks so much, Joel. You don't need a vote from us on that?
No.
Okay. Thank you so much. Now, the community report. Yoshing.
Thank you, Chair Ryan, committee members. We'll get the report pulled up in a moment since we're switching chairs.
Sure.
Yep, perfect.
Cool.
Go ahead and move to the next slide, please. So the annual community report highlights the impact of the Portland Children's Levy on the ground. The data in the report will look familiar to most of you since it was shared during the March Allocation Committee meeting. The community report is a way to hear from the people most impacted by voter investments, including children, families, and staff at our grantee partners. As many of you know, voters approved the original levy in 2002 with grants going out the next year. In this year's report, we celebrate 2 decades of making a difference. We also recognize that many programs made significant progress toward pre-pandemic goals during the 2022 to 23 fiscal year covered in this report. Pictured here are current and former foster youth in the New Avenues for Youth program called Access to College, enjoying a rafting trip in Central Oregon. And we'll hear more about this program in a moment. PCL provided 91 program grants totaling more than $26 million to support grantee partners working in early childhood, after school, child abuse prevention and intervention, foster care, hunger relief, mentoring, community childcare, and smaller organizations working in these areas. In the pie chart pictured here, you can see the breakdown in dollar amounts and percentages by program area. The grant served 9,750 children. 77% of folks served identified as Black, Indigenous, and people of color. A third lived in homes where the primary language spoken was not English. 44% lived or went to school east of 82nd Avenue. And as we all know, there continues to be a high need for hunger relief programs. The levy supported the distribution of more than 3.5 million pounds of food at more than 60 sites. The first levy in 2002 featured 4 program areas: after school, child abuse prevention and intervention, early childhood, and mentoring. The goal was to support children starting in the crucial early years by creating safe environments where they could thrive surrounded by nurturing adults. Having a caring professional mentor can significantly improve a child's life. At the Pathfinder Network, which became a grantee partner in 2020, the Mentoring Inside Out program supports youth ages 7 to 18 who are impacted by a parent or caregiver's incarceration. Jimmy, a program participant, is pictured here on the left with his mentor, Vic. Quote, "Back when I first started working with Vic, I couldn't see a future. I just felt like it was always going to be like this, and I just had to deal. Whenever I called him, he picked up and would ask me things like, if everything were perfect right now, what would it look like? There are so many little moments with the Pathfinder Network where I changed over the littlest things. I'm glad I am who I am right now. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else," Jimmy said. Supporting children also requires supporting parents and caregivers so they can provide safer, more stable home environments. The Family and Community Alliance from LifeWorks Northwest has received funding since the start of the levy. The program enhances parenting skills and connects families to resources by providing home visits, case management, parenting classes, outreach, and more. Elena Brown, a program participant pictured here, said, "It wasn't until my 3rd meeting with Jesse, a LifeWorks advocate, that I started to open up about life, my children, and the help I really did need, even if I was stubborn about it. I literally look forward to my meetings to vent, to be helped, and to be okay with being helped." For school-age children, fun and educational activities after school and in the summer can supplement classroom learning while providing safe places for children to further develop social emotional skills. Many programs feature hands-on, immersive learning opportunities and can expose children to potential career pathways. The AKA Science program from Impact Northwest provides science enrichment classes after school and in the summer on topics like chemistry, biology, physics, engineering, environmental science, and more, along with supply kits for experiments and lessons. And here's a quote from Thee Ree on the left and Shajay to Ron Russell Middle School students. Quote, I wish my normal science classes were like AKA science. Community input on emerging needs prompted the Levy to add foster care in 2008 and hunger relief in 2012 as new program areas. For many foster care youth, the time transitioning out of foster care into the early adult years can prove challenging. At New Avenues for Youth, the Avenues to College program helps current and former foster youth access and succeed in college. So this is Brittany Dillard, a program participant graduating from PSU. Quote, this program assisted me during my process in applying for Portland State University, taught me the fundamentals when it comes to writing a scholarship essay, and provided me with much needed support during difficult times. I couldn't ask for a better program to be a part of my educational journey. So in Southeast Portland, a small team at Portland Opportunities Industrialization Center packages food bags and recipes that are distributed monthly for students and families across all POIC and Rosemary Anderson school campuses and community-based programs. POIC also provides emergency food at 3 school pantries. Pictured here is Deshaun Knuckles, Associate Program Coordinator for POIC Youth Services Program. Deshaun graduated from Rosemary Anderson High School in 2020 and previously participated in the school's Levy-funded mentoring program. It's all connected. And here's what Deshaun had to say, quote, I appreciate being able to give food out. I hope to inspire somebody just like others inspire me to come back. It's great. Investments made in the Levy's early days, especially in children's early years, can make a lasting impact, sometimes across entire families. All 4 of Hilda Ku's children participated in the Listos para Aprender, or Ready to Learn, child development program offered by Morrison Child and Family Services, which has received funding since the Levy started. The program serves Latino children from birth through age 5 and their families, the majority of whom live east of 82nd Avenue. Services, all provided in Spanish, include home and virtual visits, parent-child groups, child development screenings, parenting assessments, and other family support services. Hilda is pictured here on the right. She signed up for the program when she was in the hospital with her first child, Mael Intarian Kuhn, who is now a freshman at the University of Oregon. Mael is pictured here with her parents last year at her graduation from Parkrose High School. Over the years, Mael watched her younger siblings all participate in the same program she did herself. And here's what Mael had to say, quote, it was interesting to see my siblings collaborate with other kids and playing. The home visitations were still happening. Staff would always bring different books that had just come out. It was interesting to be reading to my little siblings and seeing how they react to the pages. They really love learning. And in response to community feedback, the Levy in 2020 developed a small grants program to provide a more equitable pathways for smaller organizations to access Levy funding for the first time. Nearly all small grants also feature disability inclusion goals to better serve children with disabilities, like the after-school program at Portland Tennis and Education. PT&E operates out of the St. John's Racket Center, a facility owned by Portland Parks and Recreation, which, like the Levy, is also part of the Vibrant Community Service area. In this video, we'll get to meet Pedro, PT&E's first wheelchair scholar athlete.
Hi, my name is Pedro. When I play tennis, I feel strong and happy. Really happy. This is how I hit.
At PT&E, Pedro's our first wheelchair scholar athlete in the program. He has like a lot of inner strength. If we ask him to try something, we do it with a smile almost all the time. He enjoys doing things with his like friends and brothers around here. For our program, we offer tennis, education, tutoring, some life skills, among other activities.
Before our partnership with PCL, we weren't thinking about individuals with disabilities in such a focused way, and now we are. This grant has helped us become more inclusive of young people from all backgrounds and of all physical abilities. Having a multi-year partnership with the Portland Children's Levy allows us to really confidently start new programs and know that we can sustain them for years to come.
Como mi tío la aprieta fuerte, ahí me siento más fuerte y mi cuerpo se calma y lo puedo hacer mejor. Bye, adiós. Hi, my name is Pedro. One place tennis.
It was so great to meet Pedro that we're going to meet Pedro again. It really was incredible. And we actually have one more video to share from PT&E. We will next get to meet Carlos, who graduated from high school this year after being involved with PT&E for a decade.
I'm Carlos Diaz-Leon. I'm a senior in high school.
Carlos started in our program very young, and now he's working for us. He's at the front desk, he's stringing rackets, he's getting on the court with the kids, and yeah, we couldn't be more proud of him.
When Carlos is out on the court as Coach Carlos, the young people in the program see him as a role model and as a mentor.
I can relate to the kids because I've also had that experience. Like, make sure that their hands are right on the racket, make sure their legs are correct, and if they get down because they think they can't do something, try to give them motivation to make them think that they can.
It's hard to imagine PT&E without Carlos and the Diaz de Leon family. Carlos is the youngest to go through the program. He has older siblings who have graduated. Carlos's mom works just down the street at our partner elementary school. She's also a member of our board of directors.
We kind of work as a team to kind of help out PT&E in general.
Family engagement is very important to us here at PT&E. We really try to build a safe environment and create relationships with the families so they trust us with their kids.
The best quality of PT&E is the community, very good mental support as well as physical and education support. No matter what you want to be or what you want to do, they're going to be there. PT&E, keep on doing what you're doing. You're changing kids' lives and you've definitely changed mine. I'm Carlos Diaz-Leon.
So thank you to our grantee partners and program participants who shared their stories in the report. For more stories like these, please check out the 2024 Community Report at portlandchildrenslevy.org and follow us at PDX Kids Levy on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions? That was really wonderful. Is a partner elementary school James John?
Yeah, is your microphone on? Is your microphone on?
Oh,
yes, James
Sorry.
John is the partner elementary school for Portland Tennis and Education.
Yay,
It's just a couple
thanks.
blocks away, and the kids actually will walk over
Right.
with the guidance of their mentors from PTE who go stop by and pick them up at the
That
school.
was such a great story about this impact of the small grants.
Yes,
Yeah, thank you.
absolutely.
Okay, so there's no voting on that. We just all get to feel really good about it and impressed with Yoshing's work. Thank you. Now it's we're concluding our meeting with something that's the most important thing to talk about, the most important item, and that is we've had a member of this committee, Tracy Rossi, who is now in her last meeting on the allocation committee. You've served 4 years, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes by fast. But what I keep hearing from the staff is you're going to be missed, first of all. Your dedication and support of the children and families, both through the Children's Levy, but also with your leadership that you provide in our community as the leader of Friends of Children. It's made such a positive impact to everyone. So really just thank you from the bottom of my heart. I've had the privilege of knowing you for a while. I was so thrilled to hear that you were already on this committee. And then there was one, I think as you came in after someone left, that you could have left early, and I'm so glad that you didn't. And so it's been really important to have your insights at the table. We've been well served by you, Tracy, and I will open up the floor for any other colleagues that would like to send you some love on your last meeting.
Tracy, your presence will be missed on the council because your dedication to our most vulnerable children in this community is front and center to who you are and what you do, your voice of reason, your ability to be a convener, all of those things we are grateful to have had over the last 4 years. And as you transition into the next part of serving another part of our community on top of your full-time job, we just thank you for being a resident and an active community member in our city. And we are forever grateful for your continued leadership in this city.
Sure. We just met 5 or 6 months ago, but I still want to thank you for your, and everybody really, your patience with me in learning this process. And also acknowledge that even in your last meeting, you still had a ton of energy and good questions, which is kind of tough to do in the last couple hours. So I just want to acknowledge that, but look forward to seeing you in the community and work with you in the future. Thanks again.
I just want to say thank you because Tracy came on literally right before the pandemic. I think she was put on the committee in February of 2020 and stayed with us despite all the demands on your time. And it was quite a tumultuous decision-making process in the middle of a pandemic. And I just want to really thank you for sticking with it through that really not very pleasant time. So.
Okay, let's do a round of applause for Tracy Rossi. Yay. Well, thank you all for joining us today. It was a great meeting. Our next meeting will be on Monday, December 9th, 2024. All the agendas are sent to the Levy email list. They're shared on Facebook at PDX Kids Levy. They're posted on the website. So we welcome you to participate. You're always welcome to come and do public testimony, and you can visit the website anytime. And until December, have a wonderful, what would we call this? A wonderful 2024 summer and fall. Buckle up. See you soon.
Thank you.
I really appreciate having trusted you with this plant.
Yeah, right.